The very first presentation of the summer for our 2025 program is going to be inaugurated by Ellen Briggs. And Ellen is a really special friend and colleague whom I met through our shared love of history and preservation. Ellen was raised in a pre-revolutionary house along the Hudson River and also in a guest-windmill built from beams of shipwrecks found along Cape Cod shores during the summer. And the passion and soul of historic homes runs through her veins. When her family windmill was up for demolition, Ellen and her husband rescued it and are restoring it on their Chatham property. I have to tell you, I've been to that windmill. It is just amazing. If you saw the postcard, as we call it, that advertised Ellen's talk, there she is outside the windmill. So using her experience in the media, Ellen focused on getting a message out. And the message was, save the historic houses that line the streets of Cape Cod. They have stood the test of time. And I love that. So when I asked her to describe this evening's film, Love Letter to Cape Cod, she responded that today, the cultural history of Cape Cod is in danger like never before. And Love Letter to Cape Cod addresses the challenges facing every one of us who loves the quaint charm and character of Cape Cod, but sees it slipping away. Notably though, Love Letter to Cape Cod also offers tangible solutions to these issues.
Well, after I came up to do some work on our house in Chatham, and then I got the news that the windmill was going to be demolished, so I called my husband, who was we lived in Florida at the time, and this is a house, this is a property that I've inherited. We actually bought it from the estate, so it's been through our family. My great uncle came here in 1923, 24, he bought property in Chatham, and then after he built his original house, he saw this idea of making guest windmills out of beams from old shipwrecks. So he did that. It's a long story. But it was going to be demolished, and I went, oh no. So I called my husband, and I said, no, wait a minute, back up. So then I called all these people. I said, what do I do? What do I do? And she said, you got to call this person and this person and this person. I called each one, and in minutes, they were all over my house. And they said, well, they didn't really know that I'd grown up there as a kid, so that was kind of interesting for them. Then they turned around and looked out the window and said, you just moved it there. And I was like, what? Move it there? And they said, absolutely, it's your family's origin, it's history, you need to move it over here. So I called my husband and said, honey, what do you think? Now, I hadn't been in this since 1954, and this is 5 years ago. And he, of course, had never been even close to it. So I said, what do you think? And he kind of had no choice but to say yes, and I kind of had no choice but to say yes, and then we got ourselves into the deal. And it's a long process, so we can walk the talk of what happens when you want to save an historic house. But I got tired of the houses around me being destroyed, and I decided it was time to do something about it. And my naivete, I called a few people, and we started to protect our past. It has since developed into more than that, but I think most of all, since she already described the reasoning for films, I felt like we need to get through all the generations through the big and the small screen. And I mean, I wish everybody was reading more. I wish we had newspapers. We don't have that. Kids aren't reading anymore. So we just have to try, and now we have to compete with everybody else who wants to put it on the big and the small screen. And there's a gentleman named John Cobian who worked for CBS who had a house in Chatham, and we got together and he said, yes, I will help you do that. So he has actually produced this, written it, long story, another film, and then he was found dead in his chair in the CPS office one day, about 3 years ago now, which was devastating for us. But this is John Jacobian's it really demonstrates his passion for our wonderful Cape Cod property. So let's go ahead and watch it.
Nearly 65 miles long and as narrow as a mile wide, Cape Cod is a sliver of sand with an outsized sense of self. Personified by its geography, the Cape juts out into the Atlantic as a determined, flexed arm, as if to say, I'm here, and I'm different. And for the people who live on the Cape, their story and culture is shaped by a fiercely strong sense of place. The homes they built were quaint, the scale small, and all driven by nature and need.
Well, I think what they saw here was the amazing fishing industry, shell industry, and farming industry. I mean, they had cranberries, they made salt, they shipped fish to the mainland. Fishing obviously was the big industry. So yeah, it was a very harsh area to live in. I mean, they were self-sustaining farms back then. You know, they had cattle, they had horses, they had gardens, they had orchards. You read a lot of the early diaries, and that's how they survived.
The ancestors of the Wampanoag were the first people on Cape Cod. Their way of life forever changed with the arrival of the Europeans in the early 1600s. These new settlers from across the Atlantic with names like Nickerson, Alden, Chase, and Sears, whose descendants, along with the Wampanoag, are still living across the Cape. But in all these years, they have never seen a time like this.
It hurts me to see our heritage and what we grew up with, and the charm and the quietness of the Cape turn into these monster homes that are only used sometimes 2 weeks of the year. It's devastating.
On the remote peninsula, the Europeans constructed simple and sturdy homes, suitably adapted to the harsh environment. The designs and building methods they used from England can be seen today. While other parts of the U.S. were changing rapidly, powered by immigrant labor and industrial might, the pace in life moved far more slowly on the Cape. This created a kind of time capsule where hundreds of older homes and buildings survived into the 21st century.
It's the historic houses on the Cape embody what the Cape's all about and why people come here, and what people want to do when they're on the Cape is understand the history of this nation that goes back to 1620 and even before that.
I mean, it's all these houses and these places, everyone has an individual story to tell. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but it is part of the story, it's part of the fabric of who we are today, good or bad.
They captured the
character of the town today and the village today. And they let us know that we are part of a much longer progression of history here on the Cape.
For Cape Codders who have lived with all this history, it's easy to take old buildings for granted because they've always been around. But these structures are vulnerable and vanishing in increasing numbers. With the loss of every building, a piece of the cultural heritage of Cape Codders vanishes with it.
Death by 1,000 cuts, where you just lose 1 or 2 buildings in every neighborhood, but if you do that every year, it gradually erodes the number of historic properties and the ability of that neighborhood to really reveal its history and to attract people to the Cape.
Well, I think that every time we lose something from the landscape, we're losing a part of ourselves. And before you know it, you've lost all of these memories of the past. And they're significant because they're not only the things that you remember, but now they're the things that you're relaying as storylines to the present generation.
Cape Cod is only one of a handful of places where people live in and around the homes their ancestors built. And what they built tells their story.
Living in a historic house feels like I'm part of something, our family is part of something. We are adding on to a story that was already there for over 100 years before the house became part of my family. I'm fascinated by the fact that every house has a story, and very few of us know what it is. Even if we live in the house, we may not know what the story is. And once you start digging into it, you virtually meet these people who lived in the structure before, and you get to know them, and you start to think about their lives and their experiences in this place, and then you just want to know more.
Carpenters, tradespeople, and the service industry are now the backbone of Cape Cod's middle class. For these hard-working families, finding decent, affordable housing is tough. One by one, smaller, older, affordable homes are being replaced by multi-million-dollar mansions. Providing incentives to preserve historic homes is not causing the Cape's housing crisis, but can be part of the solution.
And you see them driving onto the Cape in the morning. It's a rush hour on the bridges and getting off the Cape because they can't afford to live here.
People believe there is diminished value in keeping older homes at the expense of building newer ones, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Historic homes bring tourists, promote cultural tourism, grow economies, and help families. Tearing down older homes has other costs.
So from an environmental perspective, there's a real value to preserving the embodied carbon that's in the structural frame of these buildings and not generating additional waste.
Those trees have already been cut down, they've been killed dry, they've been transported, they've been cut, they've been put together. When you think about it that way, a historic home actually is the more ecological home. It's the greenest home.
Newer is definitely not better when it comes to the wood that houses are built with. Wood in older homes has passed the ultimate test: time.
There's no more old growth forests. I mean, the wide pine floors that were 16 inches wide with no knots in them, they just aren't growing trees like that anymore. They've all been harvested now and replaced with fast-growing wood for the construction industry.
In a regular room, regular house, conventionally built, where you have sheetrock on the walls, you can't see the living wood, and you don't feel anything. It's just a big white wall. In a timber frame, it's more like a piece of furniture because you see everything. You see the frame, you see what's holding it up, you see the big rafters. You feel good, you feel safe because it's what's holding them up. You can see the structure.
I can take a house that's 200 years old and find incredible beams, incredible pieces of wood, incredible just old latches, all that stuff. What are you going to have when you take apart a new house? And they don't last that long, but it's going to be what? It's going to be plywood and whatever.
Cape's history may rival Williamsburg or Charleston, but the similarity stops there. Well-heeled benefactors help protect those places, while the Cape has traditionally had a more low-key approach to historic preservation. However noble, the mindset of doing nothing is now threatening the scale, look, and feel of what was here for generations. The appeal, allure, and charm of the Cape is being tested as never before.
Cape is becoming subject to that suburban sprawl that has created these kind of vast, boring landscapes of anonymous automobile transactions that our towns will become basically servants of the automobile as opposed to people walking and dealing with each other face to face. And that will become essentially like a gated community that starts at the bridges. And that's not something that most people want. As these areas get discovered, people start flocking to them. And now, for instance, Chatham, Oscarville, areas like that, they have like a zip code and address that people want to know they own the property on. It's sort of it's become a status thing.
I want to bring my New Jersey house. I want to bring my California house. I want to bring my this. I want to bring my that. So they want to move to the Cape because they like the Cape. But what they don't realize is they're destroying the Cape by bringing their own form of living to the Cape.
In Europe, people who live in historic houses understand that while they may own it on paper, they have a much greater responsibility to the history of that property. Why can't it be the same here?
If you buy an old home in the Cape, whether it's 1880 or 1680, you're buying something that you're a caretaker, you're not an owner. Because our time here is limited, but the house has been here for anywhere from 100 to 300 years.
Chronologically, of course, they're newer. I mean, we can't go to a 1,000-year-old cathedral in North America. We just can't do it. But that doesn't mean that the stuff that we have isn't of value.
When you tear a house down today, you simply cannot rebuild it to look like an old house. It will, number one, necessarily be larger because building codes require higher ceiling heights and all kinds of other things added to a house that change its appearance. And then in addition to that, when you tear down an old house, you lose the patina that's on an old house. That slight worn texture that you see on an old house never gets replicated. And you know, to my eye as an architect, if something is new, I'd rather it just be new.
Cape Cod is an experience that we feel the moment we finally cross the bridge. And if we enjoyed the Cape as children, those warm summer memories seem to draw us back again, to recapture something precious in our past.
A lot of people come here and have kind of prime youth experiences that will resonate through their life, and that they're filled with all sorts of wonderful memories of connection, of family, of kind of like sensory novelties, going into salt water for the first time, or the temperature shock off of Nauset, or you know, whatever it could be, or the smell of bayberry walking down there. And it's like, these are things that stick with people.
This is not just about saving historic houses. There are iconic shops and restaurants that families have enjoyed for generations, and they give the Cape its unique and defining charm. This building in the center of Brewster was constructed as a church in 1852 and converted into a general store in 1866. George Boyd and his wife Missy have owned the Brewster General Store since 1986. From the penny candy to the antique parlor stove, there are thousands of unique items that transport visitors to a different time. The moment you step onto the front porch, you experience something that has remained a quintessential example of what people love about Cape Cod.
It is what we are, and that people come to us because that's what they want. And you know, people will come and they'll come into the town, into the store, and you just see them relax. First of all, we're selling the past. You have a different feel when you come in here. The Nickelodeon's playing, sometimes the peanut roaster is roasting. We still have the old wooden maple floors, and the old counters and all the old antiques. So you get that sense of it.
What worked in the past will not work now, as the changes overtaking Cape Cod need to be managed with reasonable, common-sense solutions. The first step is slowing things down before the wrecking ball arrives. Well-crafted demolition delays give owners and communities critical time to collaborate and come up with sensible options to preserving historic structures. The power is with the people on Cape Cod. In New England town meetings, voices are heard and votes count. In the town of Barnstable, there's now an 18-month demolition delay that's not designed to be punitive.
It's mainly to get the community to understand what's involved and what's going to happen, and also for the owners to maybe give it a second thought.
Changing the rules won't solve everything. Deep-pocketed homeowners and developers who are determined to get what they want are hard to stop. The challenges are daunting, but must be met with reasoned, achievable solutions that manage change to the benefit of all.
It's a compromise. It's a blend. It's got many faces of significance. It's a blend of all types of restoration, rehabilitation, stabilization, replication. There's documentation of the history, repurposing of the original elements. There's so many, preservation has so many faces, it's not just one.
Realtors have an important role and responsibility in shaping the Cape's future.
You know, you just handwrite a letter to various historic societies saying, this property is at risk, it's going to be marketed for sale, please spread the word to people who love historic properties so that we can connect them and hopefully save this house. It has been very successful and I've been able to save some properties. If you market to the right people, you are not going to take a hit on the price. In fact, I think you can get more for a historic home, and I can prove it. So across the Cape, when I do comps, when I'm doing a listing appointment, I always comp against other historic properties. And across the board, it doesn't matter. The historic home will invariably be worth more than a non-historic home of the same square footage.
Another resource to save the Cape's historic structures and streetscapes is already working. But the value and role of historic commissions isn't always appreciated, fully understood, or utilized. Across the Cape, historical commissions are filled with legions of committed volunteers, hailing from old families and new. From all walks of life, these hard-working people are dedicated to finding reasonable approaches to saving historic structures. These commissions work with homeowners, builders, and architects, not as adversaries, but in the interest of the communities they serve. They can't do it alone. They need help and support. That starts with a conversation.
There is a perception out there that we're stodgy obstructionists, that we are looking to prevent progress. We're looking to change that. We're not looking to stop progress. We're looking to manage progress in a way that preserves our rich history, our heritage, our sense of place.
There is another tool available to saving historic houses that's been used for centuries, the pattern book. In cities and towns across the U.S., including the Cape, the pattern book gave homeowners and builders a user-friendly manual that was a creative force in helping to shape the look and feel of main streets.
Well, somebody wanted to build a house. Well, what kind of house do I build? But there was a pattern. There was drawings of these are the kind of houses that we have in town.
Generations of ingenious Cape Codders kept their historic homes, or at least parts of them, making renovations to fit their needs.
People utilized the resources that they had
didn't see the need to take things down just to build something new. And, you know, a lot of times they couldn't use the whole house or couldn't save a house, then they'd take the timber from it.
I would say simple process, but it's a process that was done quite a bit. Because we don't need it here, but I need it somewhere else, so why not take it apart and put it together? It's a lot easier than cutting all that wood from scratch and then building it from scratch when those pieces of material are still in excellent condition.
Some houses around here were even built out of salvaged timbers from shipwrecks. Preserve this stuff, find a new home for it, repurpose it. Maybe even repurpose a few old beams into your new home. Repurpose a door frame, repurpose a window. Don't dumpster it. Don't throw it all away, because you can't replace it. There is no more.
The challenge of keeping a historic house is nothing new. In Brewster in the 1880s, Albert Crosby wanted to save his modest boyhood home and give his young bride, a Chicago burlesque dancer, a grand mansion befitting the lavish parties she loved to host. Crosby's solution was building a 35-room home enveloping the older house, and it would take another generation of dedicated volunteers committed to the Crosby Mansion to preserve it for our enjoyment today. The modernist movement in the early 20th century is an important part of Cape Cod history. By the Cape standard, these 80-year-old houses may not seem that old, but the Cape Cod Modern House Trust was created in Wellfleet because this is another important part of history that should be preserved.
Actually, the modernist houses have an ethos of small, green, very low impact. They're very, very respectful of their sites. You have to give people context for who did it, why, what is a part of this moment in history, and how does it tie into the story of the town and the cultural story of the country. So I'd say that's a very important part of it. You can't say, hey, here's a cool building, you know, let's see.
These modernist masterpieces, some of which you can rent, are filled with stories about people who stayed in them. European artists, intellectuals, and architects escaping World War II were drawn to the Cape. Among them, luminaries like Walter Gropius, who designed the JFK Federal Building in Boston. Historic houses all over the Cape are filled with stories. These human stories, like the houses themselves, are hiding in plain sight. For generations, the Cape has attracted people from all walks of life, from artists to actors, business magnates to playwrights. How many people know that Helen Keller and her teacher Anne Sullivan spent time in Brewster? It's not only historic structures that need protecting, but the stories of the people who were inside also need to be told and preserved. In the 1970s, a group of concerned Falmouth residents joined forces to save historic Highfield Hall in Gardens. It's a classic example of adapt and reuse, as a historic mansion built in the 1800s was transformed into a cultural center, a treasure for the entire community.
In the beginning, it was pennies makes dollars, and the community members were out on the corner of Main Street, holding up signs, trying to get people to donate to save Highfield Hall and Gardens and contribute whatever they could. It was grassroots, it was the entire community coming together, and it was a house that was restored to be used for the community.
Some people committed to saving Highfield Hall tied themselves to trees to get noticed. Now, we don't need to go that far anymore. Another great option is to find a team of influencers.
Form a committee as quickly as possible of people who both care about whatever building it is and have skill sets that can make something happen. I think the town is getting it, but we have all kinds of meetings we can stand up and make our case in. I think that's the more civil version of tying yourself to the tree.
Saving Cape Cod those who care about the character and history of Cape Cod, and they do exist.
So raising a family here, it's important to me that the kids know their roots, know the history of the area, and that's something as simple as taking them out on the weekends and showing them something that might be hidden in plain sight.
Like I said, people my own age, mid-30s to 40s, who do have that nostalgia factor and want to see the Cape kind of retain that culture and those characteristics.
Similar to these people who have stepped up, there are hard-working volunteers in historical commissions and societies across the Cape who will offer help and expertise. The future of the Cape is with Cape Codders themselves, whose opinions are heard and votes counted in town meetings. The power to preserve the Cape is with the people who live on the Cape. Every Cape Codder whose family has been here for 13 generations. To those who moved in this year, has a voice, an opportunity, and an obligation to step up, speak up, and say what is precious and irreplaceable.
I want to tell you though that probably the most wonderful part of doing this is getting to know the Cape, getting to know people like Martha, learning about the Eastham's history. Back, growing up in Chatham and then we go up to P-Town, we just fly, maybe we got to Orleans, maybe we stop there, but then we just go right past Eastham. I knew nothing about Eastham until I met Martha. And holy smokes, it's now rapidly becoming one of my favorite towns because it's not ruined from my point of view so much. I know you've got some challenges, but just the history about the asparagus farming and all of that was unknown by me. People don't talk about it, but we're talking about it. So we thank Marka and we thank you all for being here for sure and representing this town. Do you have any questions before I rattle on about the love letter to Cape Cod? How did it strike you? Do you have any feelings, any questions?
Very well done.
Oh, that's very nice. Makes me sad because I see Joe and always brings that back to me. He 48 Hours, I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think they reunited that show, actually. That was his. And Maureen Mayhar, who did the audio, was she was one of his people on the show. So anyway, okay, yes.
I have a question. How do you know about the houses that are about to be demolished? We're, we turn around and there's a lot. It's barely for sale a week, and then it's clear cut, and the new house goes up. So not knowing what's happening before
you can even
the
say
bulldozer arrives, yeah.
Yeah, actually I knew this house was going to be moved just down the street from me, and I drove here tonight. I went, holy smokes, it's been moved. I didn't even know it wasn't moved yesterday, but I've been part of moving house. I know how it's done. How do you know? It's difficult. People will tell us, and the more they tell us, the more that we can get involved in trying to save it. I do speak before commissions. I call somebody else and say, would you go and speak about this house? So it starts with the historic commission. And I don't know what the demolition delay is here in Eastham. Does anybody know?
1 year.
So 1 year. We're 18 months in Chatham. That's just a delay tactic. That's all it is from my perspective. We need to do something about bylaws, and then demolition by neglect is one to do that. And here's the thing that, I mean, I get overwhelmed in thinking, trying to change the rules and regs so that people aren't as apt to have freewheeling effort to get rid of their house and bind it and build new. And it's just daunting because it takes years. It takes a year or more. Anybody on a commission here? Do you know? So you both. How long does it take? A year and a half just to even write it. Then you have to go before the town officials and get it to the commission. Then you have to go to the town meeting. So you need to do all this PR to get people to say this is a good thing to vote for versus what are you doing messing with my decision making, right? So I think preservation easements are the way to go, and we're starting to look into this. The challenge that people have is they think their house is going to be devalued. They won't get as much money for it if they decide to sell it. There's an argument for both sides of that. But if you, like, we need to be doing this for the mill. Because if we sell, well, we're not planning on selling, we're planning to pass it on to our kids, but maybe they'll sell it, right? What will protect that windmill from ever being demolished? And it would take a preservation easement that we would go through a legal process to establish that. Most of all, I want to educate people and infect them with the value of saving historic houses. Yes?
Your town has 18 months. We have a year. Can you recite some of the creative things you've done in that window of 18 months?
Well, we try to meet with the owner. If we know who it is, it depends on their lawyer. There's a house, for instance, that the commission let me know, and we had this, you saw a gentleman, Fred Ecker, he's a preservation consultant for the finest of historic restorations in this country, including the White House in Monticello. He lives in Harwichport, he's on our board, and he's brilliant at this. We also have another architect, preservation architect on our board, and we have contacts with others. So I called Fred and I said, okay, I worked it out that we would go and meet the lawyer. The owner wasn't there, but his lawyer, but his real estate rep. We're all there. And we went to the house, and we walked, and Fred went right in the basement. Goes in the basement, goes up, I mean, he really looks, not just in the rooms, but he looks at how the house is built and clues for the age of the house. And he came back and he said, let me show you, this is an historic house. This is this old, this is this. You should not be demolishing it. The house they were going to build had 33 windows in the front. And it was on the main road overlooking Oyster Pond. It was like, are you kidding me? So he wrote it up, and we put up a fuss, and the commission knew all about it. And I talked to the lawyer, and we haven't heard from him since. And it's been over 2 years. House is still, the stakes are still there. And this happens to be an owner that is well known for shopping. She loves to come and shop. And why are you coming to the Cape? Go somewhere else. Anyway, so that's just one example where if you, and please use this for us, if you know of a house that's in jeopardy, or you have a question about a house you own, or your friend of your own owns, you want to know its history, call us. And we have a historic house evaluation is what it's called. If the commission calls us to save a house like this one, there's no charge. We're just there to help save it. If it's your personal house and you want to just know all the details about your house, and we've done that for people, then it's a nominal charge. He's worth way more than that, but he'll do it. Because we want you to understand what you have and value it. Now the pattern book, I have some of these here. It helps to understand, but you heard him talk about the pattern book, which gave us the idea we need to write a pattern book, which we are. And it's the pattern book for Cape Codders, the architecture, the history, the charm of the Cape Cod homes. And we're going through from the very first drawings of the houses that were built here, and giving the details and sometimes the stories, both the interior and the exterior. Because the interior, we have no say over, right? So they'll keep the shell and destroy the fireplaces, and then it makes it crazy. So this pattern book, we're still raising money for it. We did get a grant. But the plan is to gift it to every historical commission member and every ZBA member on the Cape, to realtors, to builders, gift. We will sell it as well, but the focus is to educate these people who are making decisions, because they really don't know what they're, some do, but a lot of them really don't understand what, what the details of the house and how important they are. And also we continually try and emphasize that we've done another film called Life Rings. You can watch them all on YouTube. It's 30 minutes. And it talks about the wood, the life rings of the wood. You cannot, she said it in there, you cannot, you know this, you cannot replace that wood. It is, once it's gone, it's lost forever. They're going to South America, to the rainforest, to get the hardwoods today. Now why are we doing that? So someone can have a house that has a white wall that's been painted white to cover up. This is what Life Ring talks about. All the glued together parts that they make it look like it's solid and it's not. So they have more leaks, they have more, the air gets in because the rings and the loose glued together pieces of wood fall apart. A house, my favorite house in all Cape Cod, my neighborhood, was torn down. This is before I got into this. I'm so sorry about that. The new owners are very nice, but they had leaks every winter. There were people on the roof, and they're not there year-round, of course. They're always fixing the windows, made by 5 years. Made. If you talk to these builders, it really gets to be honest with you, they know this. So keep what we've got, and there are ways to adapt a historic house to have modern amenities. Again, Life Rings talks to that, speaks to that. The other thing I wanted, and so anyway, the pattern book, we're in a rewrite. We decided it's not quite, doesn't have enough of the interior that we wanted, so we now will have it out by the end of the year, but we thought we'd have it out by now, but then we looked at it, and it's not quite right. So that will be available, and I'll be sure to have you on top of it. The other films that we're doing, Martha is participating in one. We're doing If Our Walls Could Talk. And they speak to this. The houses are filled with stories, and they make their living history. What are the stories? How do we infect the young and all ages with the value of these houses? And we think it helps by revealing the stories behind them. So, like this schoolhouse, all I have to do is talk to Martha in that room over there. And it's like, I'm going to go back in there. I remember how to learn how to add 2 + 2 = 4 in my little papers in a room that looked like that. So, If Our Walls Could Talk, the first one is called Discoveries, and that is on YouTube. We will be introducing our next one at our film festival. Oh, put this on your calendar. October 4th, we're having it at Barnstable High School. We've had it in Chatham before, but we feel like we'd be more centrally located. So you can zip up 6 and go to the Barnstable High School, not where the symphony, not the 1,700-seat one, but the 350, let's see, the night hall. And we're engaging the students. We're trying to give them competition to create a couple videos, working on that now. But October 4th, we will be premiering our next If Our Walls Could Talk, which is Hidden Echoes. And Mark had a lot to do with that, because we are give you a sneak peek, Many Knowles is in that one. So you all know a lot of that. I mean, that was really special to go in that house and feel it. Yeah.
So what year do you consider a house historic?
All right, nationally, it's 50, which I think is insane, frankly.
A house has to be 50 years
50
old?
years, only 50 years old. So this is 2025, just 50 years ago, 51 years, that seems a little, but Massachusetts is 75 years.
It used to be 100, but under progressive governor, progressive in quotes, it was changed to 75.
I wonder why. Okay, where are the dollar signs?
Where are the books?
But I'm not opposed to that, because as we look at the history, and I was watching your film and I was thinking about this, you showed a lot of older homes, but there were a lot of homes that were Victorian, and I also saw homes that were built in the 20s.
Right.
And that is also part of our characteristic here on the Cape. And here in Eastham...
Go to mid-century modern.
Yes, and the mid-century modern. And here in Eastham, in terms of demolition requests now, the largest number came this year. We had 6 requests, but they were all cottages. And that is part of our history that a lot of people in the Cape don't realize. But the cottages were built literally on the ground. There's no foundations. They didn't have cement pillars to hold the foundation up. And it gives the commission a real problem, because in many instances, when you say neglect, many people who bought these cottages, they're only here for a couple of months. If they used to come for the whole summer, and then it was closed up, it really becomes a problem. We also have other kinds of problems here in Eastham, in that when we look at where our large areas of the cottages on the bay, the land belonged to farmers, and the farmers all knew each other, but from time to time, they would simply switch the land, and when you look at the plans in 1912, they're all beautifully squared away, but you don't build a house on 100 by 100. We have problems with water, we have problems with sewage, and so those are kind of problems that we have been facing. Now, we have lost several historic houses, and you've indicated an issue here, and that's the delay. I'm not convinced that even delay is going to stop someone who is decided purposely. And we had one house here in town that belonged to a family that were 13th generation, and they wanted it down.
I wish you had called me.
But this was before I knew you did this.
I know. And it just breaks my heart.
But there was no way of changing it. The one thing that I can say is that we managed to get all the timber saved, because they had 16, 18 wide boards, and all of those were saved.
Well, that's
and one of the things we do, even with the cottages, if there is something that can be saved, we try to see if it can be incorporated into, we're now suggesting incorporated into the new facility, so that there's some history involved.
You do the best you can, and it's not easy, but we just want to infect people with the soul of Cape Cod, the soul of historic houses. That's why we do all these films, that's why I speak.
And I appreciate all of that. I think it's wonderful.
Will help as well, because it'll educate them with what they got. And they didn't, I didn't know that. And you win some, unfortunately you lose a few. But it's working together. You should stay in touch with us, all of you, if you know of anything that's going on. And we certainly could use your help also, because because.
One of the things that you also have in this film, there was a reference to the real estate. When I've been in this now 19 years, and when I first came, I couldn't believe that the real estate people were saying, buy this house, it's a tear down.
Yeah, that's right.
And-
That's exactly what the sales pitch.
And when I got so angry at one realtor who said, it's a tear down, you've got to give us, I don't want to go through the hearing, I don't want to do any of that, just have the building inspector tear it down. And I refused.
But you will do what I want you to do.
And then I have sessions with them every so many years because they constantly change.
Yeah.
And you have to keep them educated.
Well, yes, and this pattern book will help, but you please call us, we'll come and look at the house, and we'll attend the meetings, and try and help at least improve the situation to some degree. We can't win them all, but we certainly can try. So October 4th Film Festival, just go to our website, or if you're not on our mailing list, we keep you informed. Let me know what your email addresses are, and we'll keep, as I say, keep informed. Please take one of these gut fish mount houses. This started in Savannah, and they didn't copyright it, and then Tuckett picked it up, and then we grabbed it too. So that's really fun. We have these little stickers too, you can put on your car or whatever. All right, so if any of you have nothing to do on Saturday, June 21st, the solstice, summer solstice, we have our event, our gala, at the Cultural Center, Cape Cod, which is, have you ever been there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you need to go if you haven't gone there. It's really cool. It was a bank, and it's just they've done great. They do. I mean, become a member. You can go to all kinds of lectures and musical events and things. But we're having our gala there. It's an auction. Obviously, we need to raise money to do all the things that we're doing, and so it's from 4 to 7. And it's an auction, a great auctioneer, it's a lot of fun, raw bar and fine wines and all that good stuff. And it's just $100 a ticket, which for events like this, that's pretty cheap. And we decided we didn't want to go high. But we have to raise money just like you have to raise money. We're all in this together. So, but if you want to come and have fun, we'd love to have you. You just go to our website, everything's on there, everything's there. Again, you can see all of our pop clips, which are 1 to 3 minutes, and our other films on protectourpast.org, or go to YouTube, Protect Our Past. It's a effort by many hands made for light work, but it's also the passion that you all bring to it that really makes a difference. So I'd love, any of you are welcome to call me for anything. If you hear of something you want me to take a look at, or this group to look at, if you have any ideas, whatever. We just so appreciate you loving history. We were in Boulder, Colorado this weekend. The Boulder Film Festival showed our films. And I was listening to their stories and the ages of their houses and the buildings that they're saving and what they're up against. And it's the same everywhere. So what we really want to do is take our formula and apply it to different towns. We can do a love letter for other towns. We can help them. We used to change attitudes and we influence how people are thinking about these wonderful structures like the one we're sitting in right now. And you're welcome to come down. I taste everybody. My husband's like, hell, it's like, all right. The windmill is on our property and we're still restoring it. We've made great progress since you've come in there. We're still waiting to get a septic tank, so we don't have any running water in it. But we've made certainly progress, and it's really a special place, certainly in my heart. I'd love to have you come visit. So you just email me, Ellen@protectourpast.org,